There's something strange about your brain. It may be smaller than the brain of a human who lived thousands of years ago. Not a Neanderthal, not some completely different species. A human being, just like you. Some research suggests that human brain size has declined compared with earlier populations. And that creates a very uncomfortable question. If evolution is supposed to make us smarter, why would it make our brains smaller? For a long time, we've imagined human evolution as a straight line. Small brain, bigger brain, even bigger brain, smarter human. But real evolution doesn't work like that. Evolution doesn't care about making you look more impressive. It cares about one thing: surviving well enough to pass your genes on. And sometimes, that means getting rid of something expensive. Your brain is incredibly expensive. It makes up only about 2% of your body weight. But at rest, it uses roughly 20% of your body's energy, every second. Your heart keeps beating. Your lungs keep breathing. Your muscles can relax. But your brain never really gets to clock out. So imagine having a brain that costs more energy to maintain, without giving you enough of an advantage to justify the bill. That's where the mystery begins. Scientists have found evidence that human brain size decreased compared with some earlier human populations. But there's an important catch. Researchers still debate exactly when the major decline happened, and they don't agree on a single reason why. So we don't have one neat answer. We have several competing ideas, and the first one is surprisingly strange. Maybe humans, in a sense, domesticated themselves. Think about what happens when humans domesticate wild animals. Wild animals often have to be constantly alert. They react quickly. They fight over territory. They're suspicious of strangers. And they can't afford to be too trusting. But domesticated animals are different. Dogs don't treat every unfamiliar sound like a life or death emergency. They can tolerate living around thousands of other dogs and humans. And many domesticated species show changes in their brains and bodies compared with their wild relatives. This led some scientists to ask a fascinating question. What if something similar happened to us? As human groups became larger and more socially complex, being extremely aggressive may have become less useful. Instead, traits like cooperation, self-control, social tolerance, and the ability to understand other people may have become increasingly valuable. Think about it. If you live completely alone, you need to be prepared for almost everything yourself. You need to detect danger, find food, remember locations, protect yourself, make decisions, and react instantly. But if you live in a group, something changes. Someone else can watch for danger. Someone else can remember where the water is. Someone else can make the tools. Someone else can teach you how to make them. Someone else can raise the children. Your survival no longer depends entirely on one brain. It depends on many brains working together. And that leads to the second explanation: energy. A bigger brain is useful, but it's also expensive. Imagine two humans who are equally capable of surviving in their environment. One has a brain that requires slightly more energy to maintain. The other has a slightly smaller brain that can perform the necessary tasks with less energy. If food is limited, that difference matters. And human history has repeatedly found ways to make food more useful. Cooking is one example. Processing food makes calories easier for the body to access. Then came better tools, better hunting strategies, food storage, language, division of labor, and eventually, in entire cultures. And this may have changed the equation completely, because intelligence doesn't exist only inside your skull. Think about something as simple as a map. You don't need to memorize every road in a city if the information exists outside your brain. You don't need to remember every historical event if someone can write it down. You don't need to invent a new tool every morning if your culture already knows how to make one. And you don't have to solve every problem alone, because other people can solve problems with you. This is one of the most important things about being human. We don't just inherit genes, we inherit information. A child is born knowing almost nothing about how to survive in modern society. But within a few years, they can speak a language, use tools, recognize symbols, understand social rules. and operate inside a massive network of knowledge that took thousands of generations to build. No single human brain contains all of that information. The information lives between us, in language, in tools, in traditions, in books, in technology, and in other people. So maybe evolution didn't need to keep making the individual brain bigger. Maybe some of the workload was moving outside the brain. That idea changes the way you think about intelligence. Because here's the part that sounds almost backwards. A smaller brain does not automatically mean a less intelligent human. Brain size has never been a perfect measure of intelligence. Take the sperm whale. Its brain weighs several times more than a human brain. That doesn't mean a sperm whale is several times smarter than you. Size is only one measurement. What matters is what the brain is made of, how it is organized, how its neurons connect, and how efficiently those systems work together. And there's another fascinating piece of evidence. During much of the 20th century, IQ test scores increased across many populations. This pattern became known as the Flynn Effect. In many countries, average scores rose by several points per decade. So while human brain size may have declined over evolutionary time, some measures of human cognitive performance were going up. That doesn't prove our brains became more efficient. It doesn't prove that smaller brains are better. And it definitely doesn't mean scientists have solved the mystery. But it does destroy one very simple assumption. Smaller brain does not automatically equal dumber human. And that's the mistake we make when we imagine evolution as a ladder. We picture evolution climbing upward. More brain, more muscle, more intelligence. But evolution doesn't climb a ladder. It solves problems. And every solution has a cost. A huge brain may have been incredibly useful for a human living in a dangerous prehistoric environment. But it also demanded enormous amounts of energy. And as humans became better at cooperating, communicating, sharing information, using tools, and building culture, the survival advantage may have shifted. The smartest individual was no longer necessarily the one who could remember everything. It could be the one who knew who to ask, the one who could communicate, the one who could cooperate, the one who could learn from someone else and pass that knowledge to the next person. That's a completely different kind of intelligence. And maybe that's the real story behind our shrinking brains. Not that humans became worse, but that intelligence became increasingly collective. Your brain is still doing something extraordinary. It's taking information from thousands of other humans, combining it with information from your own experience, and using all of that to predict what happens next. You are not surviving alone. You are surviving with the accumulated knowledge of generations living inside your language, your tools, your culture, and your society. So yes, the human brain may have become smaller, but that doesn't necessarily mean evolution took something away from us. It may have changed what the brain needed to do. Because evolution doesn't always make an organism bigger. Sometimes, it makes it more efficient. And sometimes, the most powerful brain isn't the one that knows everything. It's the one that knows how to connect with everyone else.